Welcome to the No Guts, No Galaxy podcast number 173. We are your hosts, Phil and Daeron. Today is Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. And I'd like to say welcome to everyone out there. How are you guys doing? How's your day going? But in particular, how are you doing, Daeron?
I am particularly doing well. Yeah, enjoying summer here in our little port town, and went and saw a movie today with my wife, and doing well.
Are you about to rub in the fact that it's like 70 degrees and...
Dude, 70? Try 62.
Oh my gosh. Like,
I was just talking to my dad down in California, and it's like 98 where we used to live. So no, thank you. I'm loving the 62. How about you, Father Bill? Today our special guest is the one and only Father Bill, live streamer and a VIP within the MechWarrior online community. Father Bill, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you.
And how's the weather where you are?
Yeah, it's a bit warm and humid. Near
Where-
the Mississippi River, it gets pretty humid.
Up in the Mississippi River. Man, I miss the Mississippi. I had catfish on the Mississippi. One of the times I enjoyed catfish the most, for sure. And I love all the river boats. And I was just watching YouTube videos of people who create little pontoon houseboats and love living on the Mississippi. Random, but anyway.
Squirrel.
I know, right?
I was going to say, Daeron, is everyone all right back home with all the earthquakes and stuff?
Yeah. We have family in Southern California, but everybody's good.
Dude, that was like... I don't miss that. I grew up. I was there for the big one in the what is it? 80 is 89?
89.
Yeah, with the World Series was going on. I just don't miss at all. That's like one thing. I'll deal with like floods, hurricanes, tornadoes though. That's another thing. I don't really particularly like. Yeah, that's yeah.
It's the thing. It's the natural disasters where you feel like you pretty much have no
control
say in the matter.
Like you can't get out of the way of like you can get out of the way of a hurricane. You or at least prepare, right?
Or at least you know it's coming.
Yeah.
A tornado could just drop down on your house. An earthquake can open a hole in your house, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I don't miss that. Anyways, guys, support for this podcast is brought to you by you, our patrons and Twitch subs and viewers and listeners. If you'd like to help support the podcast, consider becoming one of those, and we would greatly appreciate that. But as we said, Father Bill, I think this is something I need to get off my mind, and something that I just shared with you. And I know I've said this story a few times.
Confessional.
As the first MechCon we were at, I remember being backstage, and you had the audio.
I totally knew he was going to bring this up.
And video guys, because it was hilarious. Me and Daeron were standing right there, and we're behind stage, and the audio and video guys are sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear, dude, holy crap. Dude, come here, check this out. There's a priest. Guys, I think there's a priest in the audience, like right up front.
No, he was in the front row.
Like, yeah, I know, but he was like,
there's a priest in the front row.
And we were like, yeah, that's Father Bill. And he's like, hold on, is he a legit like priest? And we're like, yeah, that's Father Bill. And anyways, I know I shared that recently again, but it's just one of those things where
it is a good memory.
It is a good memory, and I just wanted to share it with.
And I think Father Bill, you've kind of always stood out in the community in that way. There's a lot of different people in this community from a lot of different backgrounds, but having a legit priest with your, the white collar there going on and streaming pretty, almost every day for years and years and years, I think it's a pretty unique situation. Could you kind of open this up a little bit and just tell us about who you are, what it means that you are a priest? Like, what are your priestly duties? What is a day in the life of Father Bill besides obviously MechWarrior?
Well, I've been a priest for 20 years of the Diocese of Springfield in Illinois. Started studying for the priesthood in 1995. Spent 5 years studying. I'm the oldest son of 8 children.
Wow.
Was born in Italy when my dad was in the service. He spent 3 years in the U.S. Army Medical Corps, and my sister and I were both born over in Italy. Came home. He took 35 years in a hospital, which is pretty rare. He was running a hospital for 35 years.
That's really cool.
So my history is pretty much, been hanging around this neck of the woods that entire time. The last 5 years, 6 years, I guess now, I've been in a little town northwest of St. Louis, Missouri. Northeast of St. Louis, Missouri, called Brighton, Illinois. And for the first time in 20 years as a priest, I didn't have a school, and found myself with lots and lots of spare time, even taking care of all the pastoral duties that I'm supposed to take care of, which includes saying Mass every morning, visiting with folks in nursing homes and hospitals, and, just trying to drop by folks on a fairly regular basis, meeting them in their homes and in the workplace. Found myself with an incredible amount of time, and just about the time that I got moved here, I must have been living in a hole when I was in my last assignment, because I had never heard of MechWarrior Online. And one day I was looking for the next MechWarrior, and it was in late March, early April of 14. And as you know, that was kind of an important time for MechWarrior Online. It was shortly after the launch party. And I found out about it, and I had been playing MechWarrior games since 1989. Microprose was a big part of my youth. In high school, when we got our 8088 computer, we were able to play 8088 computer with a CGA graphics system, which allowed me to play F-19 Stealth Fighter. What was the other one? Red Storm Rising by Tom Clancy. Games of that nature.
I bought all those.
Original Flight Simulator.
Yeah.
Well, one day I was at the video game store. I forget what it was. I don't know if it was... I don't even remember where I found it. But I found MechWarrior. And from that moment on, I've been playing MechWarrior games.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. So,
what attracted
April
you...
of 14 started playing MechWarrior Online. Go ahead.
I was gonna say what attracted you to MechWarrior? I mean, like, is it?
Before we answer your question, Phil, do we know what the audio thing is going
on? What are you talking about?
I'm getting a lot of echo. Am I the only one hearing it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then we're good, smooth. So, what attracted you to MechWarrior Online? That was your question.
It was a simulation game, and it looked interesting, and I have always been interested in something that gets me into a tank, into a plane, or into a walking tank, a battle mech. And the storyline ultimately got me, that the storyline that was woven into that original MechWarrior game just captured me. And then I found out about the novels and started reading, and I found out about the source books, and I started reading and collecting, and just the whole universe itself was very compelling. So that's why I hopped in and did the continued playing the game, and when the clans were introduced and all of that started to, it just made it even more compelling as time went on.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me though. Like the Microsoft Flight Sim, which by the way, very niche market in itself. Did you watch the new one, the trailer for the new one?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my gosh. Someone linked this video. I've never been a big fan of the flight sims, but the new one looks absolutely stunning. I think it's because they're doing I don't know what it's called. I don't know if they're using LiDAR or whatever. They're actually using real 3D maps, height maps, and top graphical terrain. And not to mention the planes look, brilliant. But
But you know what's funny though is when that original flight simulator came out, I bet Father Bill and myself both thought the same thing. Oh my God, that looks so good.
I know. I guess what I'm saying is like it's getting to that point though that where like fidelity, photorealistic, and I mean, granted, another thing that you do on your stream, this is sort of we're gonna segue a little bit here just because this topic is you wear VR helmets a lot on your Elite Dangerous streams as well, and to me. I think it's fantastic watching you. I love the googly eyes, just FYI. I think it's hilarious. But also too is like where gaming is going, it just totally makes sense. I guess the sim perspective, especially with you playing Elite Dangerous and like having to I think micromanage like all the nuances of flying around and interacting with not only the ship but stuff going around, and I think it's some really cool tech, and it's really cool watching you interact. I mean, like I said, I never really got into Elite Dangerous, but I can watch your stream and appreciate like how cool it is what you're doing. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing step forward. I have always set up my computer setup in such a way that I felt like I was in a cockpit. I don't have a mech pit like, the mech pods that we had at
we wish we
at
did
MechCon. I aspire to such a thing, but I have no carpentry skills, so I can put together the technical parts of it, but I haven't been able to do that micro building of a cockpit. But now with the VR helmet, the head-mounted display, I look around and it's just like I'm in the ship, and I'm hoping, beyond hope, that in the not too distant future, and I know Russ didn't promise, but he said it is possible that I'm going to be doing the same thing from a Warhammer 6R.
Yeah. Nice pick.
Mech 5. Whether it's if it's right away or within, a reasonable time thereafter, I'm looking forward to being able to do, the same thing I do in the starships, to do that in a battle mech.
Absolutely, man. You're preaching to the choir, Padre. And first of all, excellent choice in mech. Right away, that's going to get a message into Russ. I'm just going to remind him, hey, there's people out there, VR, just because of the Warhammer comment. But yeah, absolutely. It does. I mean, ultimately, right, we all kind of want a Ready Player One experience, I think, with the VR someday, or the holodeck or whatever. You and I got our start in gaming with the same game. I did read your Twitch page. Do you know what game that was? What was the first video game you played, Father Bill?
Pong.
That's right. That was my first game as well. Late 70s, and yeah, man, video gamers for life. It's a good thing. But yeah, I think one thing Phil and I can both relate as far as MechWarrior is number one, going down the rabbit hole and just absorbing everything, TROs and novels and video games and everything you can find. But also the second thing is completely left my mind, and I'm not going to remember it. So, but that's one thing.
I think I've asked you this in the past, but for anybody listening right now, obviously you're an active priest. How does your congregation, like, how do they react? And, like to that.
How many of them know?
Or how many know? And
they all know that I'm a computer geek.
Okay.
Right.
I have shared that very clearly with them. The kids know that I stream Twitch, and they just kind of look at me and say, why don't you play GTA 5? And I'm like, there are reasons that I don't play GTA 5.
Role play, Father Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the older folks, my director of maintenance, when he comes in and I say, yeah, I need a power supply here, and he just shakes his head and just looks at me like, are you insane? So there's a variety of different experiences that the folks have. I don't know, because not only do I stream MechWarrior Elite and a few other games here and there, but I also stream our mass on Sundays.
Yeah, so I've seen that.
They're very, very familiar with that, because that ultimately is why I have the connection that I have. is so that our homebound folks really who may not have a connection at all to faith or to a faith community are seeing that via our YouTube page. And that's what allows me to do my avocation. So my vocation leads to my avocation, which is a very surprising thing to me, because when I started this, when Phil helped me set up an overlay a long time ago, when I started to do this, it was for very small, very, very small goals. And it has grown into something that I still look at it and like, how?
Yeah.
How did I get here? It's a surprise to me every day, when I hop on and do the things that I'm doing. I just kind of scratch my head and say, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing with you, though, your personality. You've got a very laid-back personality. You're always supportive. There's been no negative. I mean, so I'm not surprised, especially streaming MWO.
I don't know, all those Father Bill controversies that have happened over the years.
But to me,
there's been none.
Yeah, it's no surprise that like people tune in. And one thing too is you have a pretty consistent schedule. You're up early, like super freaking early.
I try and retweet you whenever I can, but man, you are
it's
not
like 5. It's like
schedule.
4 o'clock my time, and I'm like, what in the world? But
there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. In that during the school year, I'm not only am I priest at 2 small parishes in Brighton and Medora, I'm also chaplain at the high school that I graduated from, and I spend 3.5 days a week at that high school. So that chewed up a huge amount of time, and over the years, I've experienced and have had to deal with insomnia, and it was a strange set of circumstances that led me to that early slot. Was I had a couple of nights where I strung it together and couldn't sleep. I could not get any sleep, and I thought, you know what, I can stare at the ceiling for 4.5, 5 hours, or I can get up and play MechWarrior. And then that led to, well, there's really not a whole bunch of folks streaming Mech at this time, so hey,
fill the slot.
Yeah.
Fill the slot, and it's
supply and demand.
Strangely enough, although I still suffer from insomnia every so often, since I started doing that, I'm in bed by 8 most nights. In bed by 8, up by 1, 2 at the latest, and then on at 3. So now that has changed during the summer because I don't have the school slot. So I don't have that huge 3.5 day chunk of time that's come out. So I can stream normal hours, if you will. Not my normal hours, but, during a daytime slot. I know the folks in Europe really appreciate when somebody can stream at the start of their day. So
absolutely.
I'll go back to that. Health allowing, I will go back to that when school gets back into session. Otherwise, I'll have to figure something else out. But long as my health continues to improve and get better, I fully intend to go back to that my normal time slot.
Well, it's definitely nice, having you there on, like Phil said, you do have a very regular schedule, and it's always good to see when you're going on, and that we're all still here. And I was wondering about the sleep thing because 2 parishes, a high school, streaming, everything. I figured either you're not getting a lot of sleep or there was something like that. So that's interesting. Now, Phil brought up something what I'm curious about as well. In all your time streaming, different games, whatever, different communities, have you ever been approached or met another either I would say a priest or a pastor or something like that does something similar to you?
Never run into anybody who does something similar, but I have run into guys, both Roman Catholics. I, I actually have a guy who resubbed today who's an Anglican priest,
Yeah.
um, who are Twitch consumers and gamers. But I have not so far run into anybody else who is a minister of any sort who does gaming, does Twitch gaming as a streamer.
I wonder if that's because of the demographic of streamers for the most part. Like
what do you mean?
I mean, age thing. I mean, if we're honest, I mean, just straight to the point. I mean, it is a newer thing as well. And I'm not saying you don't see, in this case,
every
I wasn't
show
saying you're
he takes
old.
an opportunity
I
to
know
talk
that
about how
was.
old
I guess
am.
my point being is like, usually, I mean, I don't know. You think of priest, you think of a little bit older of a person that's already established. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe maybe there are others out there that just you wouldn't know because maybe they don't wear the garb as well, and where they don't broadcast because. And that was another question I had was like, obviously, have you ever had to deal with discrimination or any like negative context?
Oh, I'm absolutely sure.
Sure, and I've got a real good set of mods who are very, very helpful in either redirecting those folks and giving them an opportunity to ponder more gentle comments or outright hitting them with the ban hammer. So and I've had to do that occasionally too. I'm always welcoming questions and comments, but as I've said many a time, I want folks to be respectful of me, respectful of each other, and respectful of the space that is the community that is being created here on Twitch.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's asking too much.
No, I don't think it is. And I mean, in general, like I think anytime I've watched you, it's always about the game you're playing too. It's not like you're, like someone could be like, oh, he's on a soapbox about this or that. It's like, I've never seen that as well.
And that brings something up. Like, I mean, I haven't seen you preach once other than when you're obviously streaming your sermons. Do you intentionally keep religion out of your streams, or do you answer religious questions when people ask them, or which I haven't encountered that during one of your streams, but I'm sure if somebody asked, you're the friendly type of person who would like to answer. But have you ever seen your stream as a way to get the word out, essentially?
I don't actively try and do that, but I'm a cheerleader.
You
for
are
Catholic
who you
Church.
are. Yeah.
It is what I am, and so when someone asks a question, I'll give my understanding of the Catholic faith, but I am not a televangelist. An evangelist, yes. A televangelist, no. I'm not going to impose my understanding of God and creation on anybody. But if somebody asks a question, I'm certainly going to share with them what I understand, and say, hey, this is my understanding. You have to find your own way. But if you have additional questions, and that's when I invite folks to pop over to my Discord, and you can't have a long dissertation on faith and morals in the middle of a Twitch stream. It doesn't work that way. But if somebody has a deeper question, I invite them over to my Discord. I try and have regular times that I'm in the Discord so somebody can pop in and we can have a chat. And I've helped folks, at least I hope I've helped folks. I've certainly answered questions, and I hope that I've helped folks, if not in the stream itself, in that experience in the Discord.
Well, we know you have fans in the community, which is obviously why you've been repeat VIP to MechCons, and I know that there's a big appreciation for you in our community, and we've always appreciated you being here. You say you can't give a dissertation or whatever in the middle of a stream, but there's some people that do, and oftentimes they can be negative or angry or whatever. And Phil and I have always had, the be positive type attitude, and it's nice to share that with others and have other people out in the community like that, which has been the case for everybody that we've had, on these recent podcasts.
Well, and I think there's a reason for that. I mean, innately, the world that we live in is crazy at times, and so you get home, you want to just check out, you want to just play games, or you want to view and just you want to be entertained or talked to, and you don't want to worry about potentially stuff that's going on. And I feel like that's another thing too that I was going to ask is, obviously in your context, why do you stream? I guess that's the question. Why do you stream? Is there,
besides to help you sleep?
So my goals when I first started streaming were twofold. One, support the MechWarrior community, because I have been, let me use a word, I have been blessed by the people and experiences that I have encountered playing MechWarrior Online. The game served as a lifeline when I first found the game, because I was kind of I was looking for a group of folks who had a similar understanding of gaming, and first with the unit that I joined, and then with the group that grew out of that unit, I was supported and informed. When I first started playing the game, again, my desire for simulation, I was using pedals, throttle, and although I am regretting that I'm about to say this, I used a flight stick.
Yep.
The first 6 months I played the game.
You weren't the only one. Remember BB Wolf at the launch party?
I did not see the launch party.
Yeah, she played in the tournament. I'm pretty sure she played in the tournament with it as well. She did. Yeah,
she did.
But she used the flight stick as a throttle and for leg placement. She always pointed with the mouse.
Right.
I used it as a point stick, and until I discovered through the intercession of the 1st Battalion of the Headhunters of Davian, the joy and the absolute thrill that is Gauss sniping.
Yeah.
Then I started, because I would use the throttle and I still use throttle and pedals. For me, it's a whole simulation thing. But the pointing, I started using the mouse to point so that I could shoot with Gauss. I'd use the flight stick for everything else, but then I figured out I was better at it with the mouse than I was with the flight stick. So the flight stick has been relegated to flight sims like Elite Dangerous. So one goal was to support the MechWarrior community. The second goal that was the start of it, is I am very proud of the gaming community that I belong to, the First Cruises Recon. You can see behind me the image of our the Federated Suns Starburst and Sword, with overlaid by a Cameron Star. You can't quite see the Cameron Star, but you can see the Starburst and Sword. That's our lore, but the First Cruises Recon is the group that grew out of the Headhunters of Davian. And we started very strong. We had a good group. We had about 50 people, and we were dropping CW faction play constantly, and we just had a really good cohesion. We were good friends. And then as time moved on, we started to lose that cohesion. We started to lose numbers, and I very much wanted both the former members of First Cruises Recon and prospective members to know, hey, we're still here, we're still a thing. And so I started streaming, and I sent Phil some graphics and made sure that the First Cruises Recon was on the First Cruises Recon logo was everywhere that I could put it reasonably. And so those were my initial goals, was to support the MechWarrior community and to support my micro gaming community, the First Cruises Recon. It's grown out of that since. I'm still trying to get every goal solidified, because, like I said, it's grown to something that I just kind of scratch my head and go, how did I get here? But the idea is there that maybe it would be good to be a partnered streamer. For me, the primary goal in that is to get, at least right now, the primary goal is to always get transcoding.
Yeah.
There are a lot of folks out there who just don't have a good internet situation, and I know a few little tricks that help. If I'm not getting transcoding, I can reconfigure my settings in such a way that it helps. But getting transcoding so that folks who don't have, the 10 gigabit or 10, what is 1 gigabit that the Google Fiber folks have, not everybody has that. So to try and be as present to the community that I'm trying to take part in, transcoding is very important, and there's a stability that would be part of partnership that I'm interested in. So that's a relatively recent thing, though, because I never imagined I would be on a partner track, but it's, hey, it's a possibility, so might as well consider pursuing it.
Are you monitoring your stats? They're pretty good about telling you what you need to do, right?
Yep. And for me right now, the biggest thing is I've met everything, and like Logan and like a few others, it's that average viewership.
Yep, I know that's the most painful one.
Well, and the kicker thing is too, and I've talked to Logan quite a bit about this, but to just apply for partnership, you have to hit those minimum requirements. That's just to the application. It isn't to be accepted. It's and like that's the difference between their affiliate, which in my opinion is very low hanging fruit. I think anyone can achieve it within like a week if they really wanted to. But the partnership,
the biggest difference is transcoding, right? I mean, that's like the golden thing most people want.
There's other factors.
Sure, but
I would say there's the emotes, the transcoding. You actually earn, for instance, the tiers for the emotes. You actually then earn the split revenue, whereas like a tier 3, if you're an affiliate, right, you only get 50%. So that I always question Twitch on that, because it's like
the people that are struggling the most, you make it hardest for them to succeed. Yeah, you're ripping them off.
You still get 100% of your bits, but
transcoding for all.
Well, that and it's one of those where there's no definitive, just like, hey, if you have 150 to 200 people, you're going to be accepted if you have that every single time and you're streaming 3-4 times a week, and you're like, it should just be a like, hey, you have to meet these requirements to be accepted. But they haven't done that, and I don't like that, and it sucks, because I do feel like people get good streamers, good content creators get sort of hosed in that regard, and I don't like that.
Yeah, I agree. That kind of brings up the next question or questions. We're talking about some of the downsides or the struggles with Twitch streaming. What to you, Father Bill, has been the best thing about streaming over the years? And it could be, doesn't have to directly relate to streaming. It could be something that happened as a result of streaming, and vice versa, or the opposite. What's been your biggest struggle or the biggest downside of streaming for you?
Community. The community
biggest
is
downside?
Biggest is the
Joking.
biggest. Well,
Upside,
you
yes.
said what's the positive?
Yeah, no, I know. I was joking. Yes.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you started out saying, regardless, the community that has found itself, that I have found myself in the middle of, that's the best way to say that, is unbelievably positive in my experience, both the MWO community, and I appreciate all the support that you folks have given me. Getting me out to MechCon the last couple of years, um, supporting me through bits, supporting me through donations and subs, and all the way, just the retweets and all that support was unexpected and truly a blessing to me. On those days where it's like, can I do this today? Do I have the energy to do this today? And then you start getting those attaboys, yeah, I can do this today. I get energy from it, which, being a classic introvert, extroverting myself like I do on a stream, in a safe space, because I'm in my safe space here. So it's not your typical um, introvert extrovert type of a situation, but I'm able to get that energy that I need to keep going, and for that I'm very, very grateful to the community. Um, I get to play with toys. That's another piece. I'm a geek. I like technology. I joke with my family that we've got a defect in the Y chromosome in the Kessler genome that allows us to be techno uh, inspired. With my dad's generation, it was hi-fi and 35 millimeter photography. With my granddad's generation, it was automobiles and hi-fi, not hi-fi stereo, but hi-fi audio. With their generation before them, et cetera, et cetera. And with my generation, it's audio equipment and computers. I have no idea what the next generation is going to be in, but my nephew is a content creator. He's an accredited sports writer for, even though he's just a podcast creator, he's been accredited as a sports writer, and he's not even out of college yet. So he's
That's awesome.
already taking those steps and proving what I've joked about, that there is a defect in the Y chromosome of the Kessler family that allows us to have this avocation for technology. So I get to play with toys. The whole VR thing, it started really as a toy and now is proving to be still a toy. I'm not going to be so bold as to say it's a tool, but there's some neat stuff that I can do with it, and that I'll be sharing with the kids at the high school once school gets started. So they'll be able to see something that this has just recently come out, but the Anne Frank house. Anne Frank was a murdered Jewish girl from the Second World War, and that house in which she lived made for a significant story. Well, someone has brought out a VR tour of that house, so our kids who could never go there, while they're still in high school, will be able to experience that, and I plan on bringing that to them when the school year starts.
I think what's cool about that too is just like how you're more up to date than probably the kids' parents are as far as the tech and how it relates to the kids and their lives as well. And I mean, me and you have talked, you helped me actually to branch off here. You said tech. One thing that I know you're passionate about too is electric cars and
Elon.
Elon and Tesla and all that. You helped me when me and my wife were looking for replacing her car. I was like, hey, we're checking out the Chevy Volt. What are the things to consider? And you were like a plethora of knowledge, almost too much. It was like, okay, like here's the charging stations, here's the websites and both. But it's one of those where, speaking of, is there anything in the like, are you paying attention to the, like, I know Tesla hasn't announced their truck yet, the consumer truck. But I know that other company, was it Rubian? Is that the name of it? It's, I think Jeff
I've
Bezos.
seen that truck. And yeah, it was just recently announced.
Yeah.
Right now, Tesla is bringing the fourth vehicle, the Model Y. So S, 3, X, and Y will be their next. I can't say that I'm a big fan of their naming convention, but you got to give them
Consistent.
They're consistent.
Well, and
They're
that
very
kind of
consistent.
that kind of brings up, something that was in my mind about you. You and I are both, roughly similar ages or whatever,
Mhm.
grew up in the same time frame. And I remember as a kid, watching those old sci-fi movies where a spaceship, a rocket ship, very specifically, a rocket ship could take off, but then also land again. And then my whole life growing up, NASA's ditching them in the ocean and whatever. And there's never been those rocket ships landing again. And now we have literally cars that are driving themselves. People every day, or you show up on the internet, people like videoing people asleep in their cars and their Teslas as they drive.
That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing.
No, it's not. Or being sinful in their cars as well. But anyway, it's these self-driving cars and these rocket ships that are landing. When we were kids, that was 100% science fiction. And now here we are experiencing a world where these things are, absolutely becoming a reality. For a techno guy, that's got to be just amazing, right? Because I was the same way. I grew up, Popular Mechanics and all Popular Science and all those magazines, and I love that kind of stuff. And when the rockets first came back and landed on the platform, and it brought me to tears because it was taking me back to my childhood, and I just never thought this stuff I'd see it. Do you experience similar feelings?
So, strangely enough, I was sitting in a college auditorium watching my St. Louis University Billikens. I'm a graduate of St. Louis University. They were winning a basketball game. And I got a tweet that SpaceX was launching their next one and that they were going to be landing one. So my brother, who had gotten me the tickets, who had gotten me my ticket, and I was sitting next to him, I said, I hope you don't mind, but I need to pay attention to this. So yeah, the whole landing and relaunching rockets to me has been a great joy.
Yeah.
And the spaceships that I fly in Elite Dangerous, Elon Musk is making possible that future. Is it going to be exactly what I'm doing in Elite Dangerous? No. But the fact that we are probably almost certainly going to be a spacefaring race of some sort, it's because of the advances that are happening. And the fact that, for their first Falcon Heavy launch, they launched his model, his Roadster, with a
mannequin
instrumented mannequin.
Yeah.
To see what the stresses were on that vehicle as it went on its way to Mars. To me, is I'm living in the future.
Yeah.
Which I never imagined with the space shuttle, which I grew up with, which seemed futuristic but very realistic. Well, no, this stuff, landing rockets and then flying them weeks later again, that is living in the future.
Man.
To me, it blows my mind when I watch the footage of it. Like it looks like a movie. That's what it is. Like I've only seen stuff like that in a movie, a sci-fi movie. Like, and to just watch the rockets come down. I mean, you see it. That's the only description I can put it. Like, it looks completely sci-fi, and it's pretty amazing to obviously be like this is going on. But yeah, the Tesla stuff, I talked to you quite a bit. I'm always like just keeping an eye on it. I mean, obviously the Model 3 that came out, and other car companies are, in the works and going to be released. And there's other electric vehicles as well. But as far as like they are the leading one, and as far as like the range that they get, and now, yeah, it's Rivian. That's the other company. If you guys look up the truck, it's Rivian. It's the company is backed by, I think, like I said, Jeff Bezos, the Amazon guy, or he dumped money into it or whatever. And it looks a little bit different, but it's got some pretty amazing range as well. And I know the crazy thing is I didn't realize that, the F-150, outsells every other truck combined. Just that thing. And so that's going to be the truck that, Tesla is going to be gunning for, that market of saying, hey, we want to sort of take over. So anyways, it'll be cool seeing that, as we progress. Do you, what about like solar and stuff? Do you follow any of that tech?
If I had a little more in the realm of, if I owned my own home and I was not living in a parish resource, I'd have solar and Tesla power walls, or some form of battery backup, because I believe in renewable energy. I think that renewable and other non-traditional power generation is going to be very important for the future. I have a slightly different spin on it. There are things that petrochemicals can do that only petrochemicals can do, and we need not burn it. We need to keep it for those things. I also like the whole let's keep the environment. Let's do what we can to support the environment. But I'm a very practical in this. I'm a practical environmentalist in that, we need medical grade plastics. We need the things that only petrochemicals can do. And once we've used up all that, we got to figure that out, and we got to make this stuff last as long as possible. And by going to a little town just north of me, when they built their most recent public housing system, put up, because they got a grant from the government, put on solar cells and windmills, micro windmills, not these giant. I just drove across Kansas and saw these enormous windmills, but they put up micro windmills so that, even that little community is generating renewable energy. So I really do think renewable energy is going to be something very important for the future. And of course, fusion, if we ever figure that out, will change things. But until then, we need to use as much renewable as we can to hold on to the resources that we do have and use them responsibly.
Yeah, regardless of where you fall on what side of the line as far as all that goes, there's just logic to where we do have limited resources and we do have options, and it certainly doesn't hurt, and certainly could help. So I agree. I mean, obviously there's places where you can't get rid of, oil and gas completely, but I love all the new technology. I love it,
Well, there's another reason as well, but it's more of, as the cost goes down, it's consumer friendly. Like everyone would love to be able to say, hey, you know what? You're not going to pay a dime for your electric bill every single day. But it's really not practical for someone to be like, yeah, you only have to shell out $20,000, but it'll recoup in like 5. It's like, well, when that
and there's a few people who don't want to say that you can get your energy for free, PG&E, for example.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess that's the thing is like, as the cost goes down to be able to do said, I don't think anybody's against like that.
It's that when any new technology starts out, it's got to get popular enough to where it's mass produced
Yeah.
to where the cost comes down and can be
Like
reasonable.
right
But
now, like I looked at it for our house. I was just curious, and there's websites that actually use. It's actually pretty cool. Google Maps, that because they can see the square footage of your south-facing roofs and so forth, and it'll estimate how much power. And basically now it's like I said, it's around 15-ish to $18,000, but then there's state and federal incentives that can knock that down a little bit. But then you recoup your cost in about 4 to 5 years. And so again, now jump ahead another 5 years. Where's that price? How's that came down? Same thing with like Tesla and they're still, they haven't released any new up-to-date information, but their solar powered roofing tiles that look amazingly. I mean, they look amazing, but one of the things they're still working on is it's really hard to get the like form factor, I guess, the size, and then the tensile strength of like, so you don't accidentally, something just doesn't hit it and shatters it. And I guess that's what they're still working on. But I mean,
it's just right around the corner.
Yeah. And,
the materials technology will get to that point, and those technologies will be very accessible.
Absolutely. My whole town I live in is, a solar, every house around here in my neighborhood has solar panels. You got solar bikes. You got all these boats have solar power. Which
is
love
funny considering that probably the lack of sunlight.
The lack of sunlight, I know, right? But the nice thing that's what's cool about it is it doesn't take clear blue skies. It can be overcast and you're still getting power.
And every little bit is free energy from the sun. So, it's,
Anyhow, Elon doesn't need any more plugs from us. Let's get back to streaming and video games. You mentioned, obviously, you have huge ties, long ties into MechWarrior and battletech, and we appreciate that. It's always nice to have another mech head around here. And you're playing Elite Dangerous, another cool game. Definitely appreciate that. What else are you playing right now? Anything else piquing your interest?
I've been recently introduced to the Total War series.
Okay.
So I'm playing the Three Kingdoms, Total War. I played Total War 20 years ago, and haven't touched it since. So it's kind of fun getting into it again, getting into that real-time strategy type of game. I'm looking forward to, of course, M5.
Of course.
Mech 5 is I'm looking forward to that. I'm trying out different ones. I missed a sale, so there's one I really want to try. It's the Pathfinder role-playing type game.
A lot of people liking that.
I missed it by that much. So I'll wait till the next sale comes up and then I'll pick that up, because I have a very well-developed sci-fi fantasy brain, and I enjoy that genre of game. So obviously I'm playing battletech. I have just lousy luck with it though, so I haven't rage quit it yet.
Is Decker
but I have
alive?
had to walk away from it a time or two so that I didn't rage quit.
Are you struggling with surviving, or are you trying to get specific mechs and you're just never getting them, or what's the difficulty?
I've lost the 4 pilots. The 4 pilots you start with, including my pilot being out for 6 months, more times than I can count. And, when I lose Behemoth, I kind of know, well, that playthrough is done, because of course you're going to lose Decker.
Of course.
Decker just
that's what he's there
normal.
for.
But when you lose Behemoth, who's the bulwark, is the strong one. Yeah, it's kind of, so I've restarted it more times than I can count, and even with the changes I struggle with it, but I go back to it periodically. And
have you played Rogue Tech?
Me practice in patience, and I will leave it at that.
Have you played Rogue Tech?
I have not played Rogue Tech, although the one that I'm looking at is the XLRP variant, which Gimpy plays.
Yeah.
And that one looks, it's not quite as complicated as Rogue Tech. It doesn't have as many moving pieces. And so it looks like it's two things. One, I think it's a little more stable. And two, it works with urban combat.
Urban warfare. Yeah.
Urban warfare. Yeah.
I found Rogue Tech. There was things I really, once I got into it and actually was playing, there's things I could really appreciate. But then there were so many things I feel like that I could have not had. But then I went and played the vanilla, and it was like, it was, I wouldn't say a shallow experience, but some things seemed very dumbed down. Like, for instance, I like the initiative system, how they have it in Rogue Tech. But the vanilla initiative system, I'm not as much of a fan of. Just of how it affects your gameplay. Like, and some of the rework they did on the skills I can sort of see, because bulwark becomes like the go-to still, like, and like you'd always like go after like just legging the mechs and stuff, and you may not be able to do that on some of the things Rogue Tech. And again, for those that listening, Rogue Tech it's not one mod, it's literally like a compilation. So there are mods in there that I feel add probably a negative, at least for me, experience, but then there's others that I feel like would be great in the base game as well. All right, well, sorry. Well, anyways, Mech 5, you obviously played Mech 4, Mech 3, I'm assuming. I don't know if you were a Mech Commander
All
fan.
of them?
I played everything through the base game of, I did have Black Knight, Mech 4 Black Knight. I did not play Mercenaries, so I missed that.
Okay.
That came out just about the time I was starting my first assignment. I got a little busy. So played everything through Black Knight, and then came back through in 14 to MWO. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to the experience. I mean, I've played Mech 5 now twice.
Yeah.
And the first experience was incredible, although I really wanted my pedals and throttle with the first playthrough. The second playthrough wanted my pedals, but the throttle and the flight stick experience was tremendous. So I think that aspect of things is going to be very useful, very, very enjoyable. That's a better term, enjoyable for the future. And getting into a scenario-based where it's, I'll never, as long as we've got MWO, I love the 12v12 experience. I like the unpredictability, although sometimes it gets very predictable. There are times where it's like, oh, I've not seen that before, or it's been a while since I've seen that. But getting into something that is story-based, scenario-based, and that has the destructibility that Mech 5 has shown that it can do, I'm looking forward to that. Very much so.
Yeah, Mech 5 is going to be great. We're all looking forward to it. Thank God for the, specifically you can, for the modability. And then maybe, perhaps we can get Paul to donate to your church, one of the sim pods. We'll see. I hear there's a long list. But one question I've been asking, I asked both of our previous guests that I kind of like, because it says a little bit about who you are and your passions or your likes, is if you could design any game. Now, you've been a gamer your whole life. You started with Pong, you played all the MechWarriors, you said you're into sci-fi, fantasy. If you could design any game yourself, what would it be? Would we have the first church simulator?
No, wouldn't be a church simulator. I'd be walking on the moon.
Walking on the moon, like it'd be moon landing?
It would be some sort of simulator that allowed me to pilot a vessel from Earth to the moon. I've already got one of the games that I'm playing on a occasional basis is Surviving Mars.
Sure, that's a great
but
game.
but that game really is more like it's
It's not a simulator. It's a
it's
strategy game. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's a strategy game. It's Sim City on Mars.
So would you so you're talking something that for your moon landing you'd want the VR experience, right?
I would want the VR experience. I
Yeah.
would be in a ship landing on the moon and then interacting with the as it could be Mars as far as that goes, but it would be landing on a planet, developing the resources, and doing things of that nature. That would be my ideal game. That would be. I have dreamt of going into space my whole life. I was born just before the last of the moon landings.
Yep.
And I have been a space case ever since. And,
I hear you.
So to do something along those lines where I could interact with a ship, a planetary surface, and imagine that I'm doing that, which at one point in my life, I was planning on being an astronaut. I wanted to be, in fact, if the International Space Station ever needed a chaplain.
There you go. Yeah. I hear you. Okay, that's very cool. So my last question, I actually, that was going to be my last question, but that made me think. As far as if you like the whole sim experience, and you're gonna do this game, do you want Ready Player One type experience? Putting on the goggles and the gloves, or would you rather have the holodeck from Star Trek? If you could, and both, peak of technology,
or 3, the Matrix.
Where
you plug in. There's no physical movement.
Nope. No plugins. Nope. That's
okay.
That's my Luddite experience there. No plugins. But
Ready Player One versus holodeck.
Good question.
I'd go.
I don't even know if I know.
I'd go with holodeck.
Like...
You know why?
Why?
Because you can move around. With
Ready
Player One, you're restricted to you're restricted
I have
that
to
area.
agree with you, Phil. I think that would be compelling. If we're talking any possibility, even if it's just the Microsoft HoloLens, which is augmented reality, which you can see into the world, but you're seeing additional things, which would be kind of a hybrid of the VR headset and the holodeck experience. I think that would be compelling. Something that made me feel like I was actually in, because Elite Dangerous, you're seated on in a cockpit and you're interacting with the ship. That type of a game, if you could interact with the environment around you, that would be awesome. Awfully sweet.
You know what I think? I feel like we will progress. I think what's going to happen is and I know there's new VR technology coming out, and as that pushes, but I feel like the ultimate goal though is much like the Matrix, as far as maybe you don't plug in, but maybe you have some type of circuitry or whatever that just connects and it just transforms your current consciousness or what you think is consciousness into a different, as far as a computer world. I feel like that's really what VR is trying to do, because ultimately the experience is to immerse you so much that you don't know the difference between, or that you're able to have that experience without physically having to move. I feel like that's where it's going to go in our lifetimes, or at least, Daeron's lifetime.
You could very well be right. You could be very well right.
I like Impy's answer the best. He goes with Ready Player One because it doesn't break down every other episode and try and kill everybody.
This is true.
I always wondered that about the holodeck. Like, they had so many episodes like that. Like, somebody's got to go back to the drawing board here. But anyway, Father Bill, it's been an extreme pleasure. It has been for many years having you in the community, and we're very happy to have you here today and be able to profile you a little bit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, for those that are listening, make sure to go check him out at twitch.tv/father_Bill. Bill, and he has got all of his other information down below his stream, so make sure to check that as well. Father Bear, it's always been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being a part of the community, but also being a supporter of us here for a very long time. It always amazes me.
We appreciate it.
It's years. He's about to hit his 5-year mark.
Dude, time has gone by so fast.
Jeez, man. So thank you. Is there any last things you'd like to tell everybody out there? Any last comments?
Thank you. Thank you. It has been an incredible journey. It continues to be, and I look forward to it being part of my life, and I hope to be part of yours for many years yet to come.
Awesome. This podcast is supported by you, the viewers. Again, please consider supporting us in a variety of ways. You can become a sub to the channel. You can become one of our patrons. Also, make sure to check out our store as well. We'll have these links in the description down below as well. And of course, if you are going to be shopping on Amazon, speaking of which, I know a lot of you guys are, because the new AMD GPUs, CPUs, and motherboard and all that are hitting, and the results look pretty good. That's another thing we didn't talk about, was that tech. But some of you guys are going to be upgrading. So again, if you want to support the channel passively, use our link, and we get kickbacks when you guys buy stuff. So we'd appreciate that. Thanks.
Absolutely. And also be sure to check out our website at NoGutsNoGalaxy.net. Check us out on Twitch at NGNGTV, YouTube at NoGutsNoGalaxy TV, Twitter at NoGutsNoGalaxy, Facebook at NoGutsNoGalaxy Podcast, SoundCloud at NoGutsNoGalaxy. And for all the latest and greatest in mech porn t-shirts and mugs, be sure to check out NoGutsNoGalaxyStore.com.
This was your local No Guts, No Galaxy MechWarrior podcast. Signing off for tonight. This is Phil.
And this is Daeron.
Until next time, Mech Warriors. He's a little slow on the draw, but he got it.